Okay, good morning, everyone. So we're going to get started the second day. All right, so again, following yesterday's conversations, yesterday what we have discussed was about the theoretical founding and the grounding of all this editorial work that Petar has been doing. So today we're going to go into more practical side of his job as an editor. So you will see what he's doing as an editor when he received the manuscripts to his journal, and what are the criteria that he's thinking when he judged the quality of the manuscripts. And we have a lot of, as I mentioned yesterday, we have a lot of things to think about when we play this publication game. It's not really neutral, or it's not a political task we have to handle. It's like very political landscape of the academic publication that we are supposed to be aware of. So today's topic is going to be touching upon those interesting and important issues. And then we're going to move in the afternoon for actual writing session. So is everyone is okay? Do you have any question before we start? All right, so I will hand my microphone over to Petar. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Hello again. Good morning. Thank you for coming. It's 10 o'clock. We did a lot of work yesterday, and we are going to do more work today. And I'm really pleased to see so many of you today, meaning that you didn't really get so disappointed from yesterday's talk. As the professor said, today we will do some very practical things. So I will show you something which is quite popular in these workshops and something that people usually don't see. So I will show you what happens to your paper when you submit to Postdigital Science and Education. I will show you the way that I personally handle those papers. I will show you on live papers, meaning that I will show you on papers which are just now in the system. That's admittedly slightly against publishers' policies, because those things should be confidential. So I will just run through some things pretty quickly, because I don't want to, it's not really important who the authors are and who the reviewers are, but the principle is important. And after we go through this very quickly, then we will discuss things one by one. I will give you a couple of sources, an article that I wrote about these things, and we will go one by one. We will go starting from how to choose the right journal, some recommendations for choosing the right journal, then how to prepare your manuscript for a specific journal, and then how to handle things and how to, let's say, behave in this kind of authoring situation. And then at the end, I will just give you some brief writing advice, which I think that many of you will probably know, or probably at least have heard before. But I will just continue, and I will just briefly say a few words about that before you go to the practical part. So today's workshop will be very practical, but also not just. So the first thing I would like to say is that we have this online system. When you click on submit your manuscript, then you get a screen like this, and then you can log in as the author, as a reviewer, or as the editor. So here we will log in as the editor, and we will come to the main page. Now, I would like to say that there are many different systems. This system, which is called Editorial Manager, is used by Springer and some other publishing companies. You may be familiar with Manuscript 1, which is being used by Routledge and Taylor and Francis. Actually, Springer is changing their system, and Postdigital Science and Education is scheduled for change next week, basically meaning that we will have a new system. But the principle, the way of thinking remains the same. I have edited in many different journals, for many different journals, with many different publishers and in many different systems. And actually, the look of the system is not important. The same like when you use your Gmail, it's really the same whether you use an online platform or whether you put it into Outlook or whatever. It's all the same principle. It's always the same thing. Like you send email, you receive email. So here is the same principle. You always handle articles, handle submissions in a certain way. Okay, so let's see what we've got here. The first thing what we've got here is some new assignments. So let's see what happens. Okay, so there's somebody called Georgina Maddox who gave me, who submitted this article, and it's an original article. The first thing I will probably take a look are details. Now, details are important because I can see not only who this person are and an abstract, but also I can see whether this manuscript belongs to a special issue. Now it's important because if the manuscript belongs to a special issue, then I will not handle it myself. If a manuscript belongs to the special issue, then I will forward the manuscript to editors of the special issue so they will handle it. But if the manuscript is not for the special issue, then I will take a look myself. So what I will do, I will close this down and I will take a look at view submission. Now, I get this, which is done by the system, and what I get here is the manuscript which has certain information about the authors. Now I get this because I'm the editor. If I assign this manuscript to you as the reviewer, you will get the same thing, but it will be anonymized. You will not get these names. I get these names because I'm the editor, I need to know everything. But if you're a reviewer, then you will not get these things. And then I quickly take a look. I read through the manuscript and so on and so on and so on, and I make a certain decision. Now, I just quickly take a look, like this, and usually after a few minutes, I can decide whether the manuscript is suitable for review or whether it's desk reject. Now, 9 out of 10 manuscripts will be desk reject. And they will be desk reject for many reasons. We can talk about it a bit later, or maybe we can talk about it now. So the first thing why a manuscript would be a desk reject would be its suitability for the journal, like a topic. Post-digital science and education, people would submit papers from computer science, papers from psychology, papers from completely different fields. I don't know why people do it, but scholars sometimes just misjudge. They think they submit to a journal something which is completely off topic. Desk reject. The second one, the second main reason for desk reject is when a paper is, for instance, post-digital science and education publishes papers which are quite theoretical. So I'm not interested in case studies. I am interested in case studies, but they need to have a good theoretical underpinning. They need to have a good theoretical background. So if you want to present something like results of your survey, post-digital science and education is probably not the right place for that. and so on and so on. So anyway, if I decide for any reason that the paper is for desk reject, I already have on my desktop, I already have things like document which has desk reject. I just go here. Now I have many different messages. Dear author, I like it, if you want to be, and so on. So I have many versions of rejection letter. I just copy and paste one of them, click desk reject, which I will not do now because I click submitted as decision. I click reject without review, copy paste. In 5 seconds, your paper is goodbye. Okay? Why do I do this? Because good reviewers are not easy to get. If I want your professor to review a paper, I will expect your professor to use 1 or 2 hours of her life, or 3 even, depending on the paper, to write a proper review. Now, we receive thousands of papers per year, and I cannot put this burden on your professor or on anybody else. These people are too valuable. So only if I see that the paper has a good chance of getting accepted, let's say 50-50, if I feel that there is something good about this paper, then I will invite reviewers. So desk reject is not because I'm a person who doesn't like academics or who doesn't like people or whatever. Desk reject is not because, it's simply because of economy. It's very hard to get good reviewers. Good reviewers will usually be people who published at least 1 paper with the journal. Now you will expect those people to review few, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 papers per year. There's not so many of those people. I simply cannot have each and every paper reviewed. So the more material I get, the more I need to desk reject, leaving only the best for the reviewer's feedback. Once your professor, who is also my reviewer, receives a paper, she will know that the paper has gone through the filter. She will know that I think that the paper has some potentials, and she will pay attention to it. If I leave everything, if I just send everything automatically for review, it's a disaster. First, you need thousands of people, and secondly, it's just a disaster. So it's very, very important. But most papers actually get rejected at this stage. Now, once papers go under review for any reason, then it comes to the next stage, which is, let's just a sec. Okay, so we have 19 manuscripts under revisions. So we can take a look at some of those and see, for example, view reviews and comments. So I have this paper which has like 2 different reviews, and then I make a decision. So I can read the first review by the first reviewers, I can read the second review by the second reviewer, then I make my decision, then I send this decision, then I get the first revision, then I send the decision, and so on and so on. It goes like that pretty much for every paper. It gets a bit more complicated if you have a situation for a special issue, because for a special issue you have guest reviewers, so people who review for you. I can show you how it looks like. I mean, it's not really a secret. It's just a bit more complicated, but nothing else. So, for instance, okay. So we got things like, so this is Eddie Evans. She's handling 4 papers at the moment. Then it's Michael Gallagher. He's handling, but just a sec. This is a, let's put like this. No, sorry. Okay, it's just pending assignments. Okay, there's much more. So anyway, this is the thing. So what we do, so these under revision, many of these under revision are actually papers that are handled by somebody else. Let's take one example. Reviews. So first reviewer, second reviewer, guest editor, and then I confirm the decision. So every time you have a guest editor, they are kind of independent, but not really, because I have to confirm every decision that the guest editor makes. Meaning that whatever happens in the journal, I'm fully responsible for this, and whatever happens in the journal, no decision goes out to authors not without my knowledge, but without me actively clicking on something. And then you will see that actually when you take a look at those numbers, that those numbers are not so big. So when you take a look at the main menu, and when you take, for instance, at search submissions, you will see that in this year, for now, in 2025, we have only 193 papers in the system. Why do you think that is? Well, it's simple, because many papers never get into the system in the first place. Many papers get rejected even before they end up in the system. That's another filter. So, okay, people send things to the system normally, regularly. But actually, a lot of editing takes place in emails. I'll just give you the most recent example. Let's switch on my Outlook, literally my email. But okay, here's a paper tonight at midnight. Hello, Peter, I'm sending you the paper. Here is another paper coming. Here is another paper coming. Here is another paper coming. It's like 4 papers in what, 1 day? Okay, so many things happen in my email as well. I keep this double system because it's sometimes easier to take a look at those things, simply because people send you communications in various channels. And actually, it's kind of easier to just reply than to tell this guy, okay, cool, just submit, and then I will make the decision in the system. But it's also very important, this makes my decision making a bit, I mean, my decision making is always the same, but my statistics are wrong, because my publisher takes statistics only from the submission system. And a lot of stuff takes place outside of the submission system. So those things which are in my email, they don't show up in statistics. Meaning that basically my rejection rate, acceptance rate, and all those things are simply wrong. Whatever says on the website, it's not correct. In reality, they're much bigger. In reality, I reject many more papers because I reject many through email as well, but those things are not seen through the system at all. Why? Because you offer me a paper. in email. And the system is clumsy, the system is not so easy to use. So it takes like half an hour to submit the paper in the system, and I can just reject it immediately because I know that I will reject it anyway. So I will just tell you to spare you half an hour of work. Some editors will insist that everything goes through the system. They will tell you, please submit, and then when you lose half an hour, then they will say, okay, now I reject. But I'm sparing you half an hour of your life. Because looking at, it's 4 papers per day, 1,000 papers per year, half an hour per person, 500 work hours spared for somebody. That's the idea. That's why I'm doing it. What I want to show you here is that, importantly, it's not just my journal. Most journals, editors do the same thing, and most journals have wrong statistics. That's important when you take a look, when you analyze which journal you would like to publish in and so on. Be aware of the fact that most journal statistics are just wrong. Okay? Now let's move on. So I made a decision to accept or reject or do something with some paper. There are certain things that I would like to, that are always kind of, let's say, similar. Let's take a look at this one. Basically, I have a policy in which post-digital science and education, every paper in post-digital, you can read this while I'm talking, every paper in post-digital science and education needs to make a theoretical contribution. I insist on theoretical contribution. Your paper can be empirical, you can be based on interviews, questionnaires, case studies, and so on, but you need to have a theoretical contribution. Many papers come without a clear theoretical contribution. Now, sometimes those papers really don't have a theoretical contribution. They just say what happened in Korea in this or that school. But if I feel that there is a potential for theoretical contribution, but this theoretical contribution is not clear, then I will use this text. I will just copy and paste, and that's it. Basically, I have like 10 or 15 main feedbacks which I use like regularly. So apart from my reviewers giving their reviews, I would regularly add things like this, for instance. This is also a very common thing. So somebody says, you write a post-digital paper and you say, I'm working in post-digital perspective. Okay. But the trouble is that there is not one post-digital perspective. So Professor Lee could have her own understanding of a post-digital perspective, and somebody else could have their own view of the post-digital perspective. And those perspectives are not those views are not necessarily the same. We have a typical example in, for instance, in post-digital linguistics, where we already have like 2 different schools, pretty much. One of them coming from Lancaster, Natasha, and the others, and the other one coming from Ibrar and Butt and Leslie Gorley, where they simply disagree about some things about post-digital linguistics and semiotics. So when you say, I'm using a post-digital linguistic perspective, you need to say which one. You need to say whether you are using the Lancaster one or whether you are using the UCL one, because those groups of authors have different views to post-digital linguistics. Now, I'm not just saying about one author or two authors. I'm saying about that one group of authors has done one book, the other group of authors has done their special issue. I'm talking about 15 or 20 different papers by 30, 40, 50 authors, where we have two quite large groups which disagree. Now, the thing is that, as I said yesterday, disagreement is actually good. It's actually cool, right? When you are, let's say, editing or leading a certain paradigm, a certain way of thinking, is actually very good to allow for diversity. But still, if you write about post-digital linguistics, I would like to know which school you will refer to. In order to know which school you will refer to, I will need to so this is Leslie hates this, using more the digital, Knox, Sarah Hayes, and so on. So basically, when you take a post-digital perspective, you really need to go deeper and say which one, which post-digital perspective. Now, this is a very common mistake, for instance. Okay? So I've got maybe 10-ish different things, which will be maybe less. This is quite a common one as well. People will write 5 pages of text without sections, without paragraphs. Now, it's really hard to read. For somebody who is Croatian, for somebody who is Korean, because English is my second language. It's not my native language. For you, for most of you, it's also your second language, is not your native language. So for somebody who is non-native, take the full screen of text, left to right. It's so hard to read. In order to make it, and 90% of our readers are actually non-native English speakers. So your English needs to be clear. I'm not saying that your English should be artistic. It should not be artistic. Academic writing is not about writing like Shakespeare. Academic writing is about sending a clear message across. To do this, you need to have things like sections, meaning that you have some title, then a bit of text, then title again, then a bit of text, then title again. I regularly receive papers with 8,000 words without any titles. Paragraphs, the same thing. Sentences, the same thing. Each and every sentence needs to be written clearly. So this is a very common mistake. And because this is a very common mistake, I already have a text. So when I receive a paper like this, copy, paste, 5 seconds, you've got your feedback. Okay? So these are the most common mistakes. I can go more and more. I could now show you more and more, but basically we are kind of approaching somehow the end as well of this. No. One more important feedback, really, really important. If you take a look at any post-digital science and education paper, literally any, you will see that those papers are formatted exactly in the certain way. So it's author, year, page number. It's not author, comma, year, comma, p dot this. It looks like this. If you go to the reference section, it's exactly like this. It's DOI and full stop at the end. It's and so on. Then the title of the book is italicized. Title of the journal is italicized, and so on and so on. So there's something which is called style sheet, which actually explains how those things work. For in-text references, please write no comma after author's surname, single quotation marks. For quotation within, use this. Please use one word post-digital instead of post-digital. And so on. It's quite simple. But most papers come and they are not formatted like this. Let's take some examples. Let's take a look at whatever, Central Asia, view submission. Okay, there's a comma which shouldn't be here. There's a comma which shouldn't be here. There is there's no full stop after doi, and so on. So I can immediately see if you are not using post-digital science education house style, I can immediately see that the paper was not originally written for post-digital science and education. What I can immediately see is that your paper, that my journal, was not the first choice for your paper. That it does. And I will explain you why. This matters because every journal has, okay, so there's no, I mean, there will be some journals by some less reputable publishers and less reputable journals which will publish pretty much everything. Meaning that they will say we are doing educational research and we will publish whatever in educational research. But most journals, most quality journals, like Post-Digital Science and Education, like LMT, Learning Media Technologies, like Teaching Higher Education, and so on, have a clear editorial scope, have a clear aim, what we actually want to achieve with the journal. So Post-Digital Science and Education wants to develop post-digital thinking. More than 50% of our papers don't even mention the word post-digital. You don't need to write post-digital, post-digital, post-digital. You don't need to cite me or cite Professor Lee or cite somebody to get published. But what you need to do, you need to pick up a clearly post-digital problem and offer a solution within the framework that will then move forward or develop post-digital thinking. Learning media technology, the last time I gave this workshop, I gave it with my colleague, editor Felicitas McGilchrist, who is the editor, one of the co-editors of Learning Media and Technology. And I described to our audience the scope of post-digital science and education, and she described the scope of learning media and technology. What she wants to do, what her journal wants to do, her journal wants to focus on educational uses of information technology. Critical approaches to educational uses of educational technology. So, for post-digital science and education, you have to have either a post-digital problem, or a post-digital methodology, or a post-digital solution, and you need to have a clear contribution to post-digital thinking. For learning media and technology, you don't need to be post-digital, but you do need to focus to educational technology, and you do need to focus on educational technology in a critical way. So it's very clear, if you go to any of those journals, and if you actually read 10 papers, 20 papers in the journal, you will very quickly understand what those journals' scope is. I'm not saying that your paper is a bad paper or a good paper, but quality is one thing, but the paper also needs to fit the journal. There are some general purpose journals, but those journals are usually not as good. So, BJET, British Journal of Educational Technology, one of the most cited journals in the field, is, forget the British part, because they do the whole world, but it's Journal of Educational Technology. So they will always have something about educational technology. You'll have teaching in higher education, which is edited by our colleague Ibrar, and it's teaching in higher education. So you will not submit a study done in primary school because it's teaching in higher education. Okay? And so on and so on. It's not so easy. Sometimes it's not just about the title. Teaching in higher education is quite simple. You don't submit primary school to teaching in higher education. But there's more to it than this. It's not just about working at the university. So every journal will have its specific scope, its specific focus. And depending on what your research is about, depending on what your paper is about, you will pick your journal. And then you will pick your field, and then you will make a contribution to that particular field in a particular way, because we are, post-digital science education is specialized in post-digital work. And we are, as I said yesterday, we publish about, together with the book series, we publish in the encyclopedia, we publish about 40 to 50% of everything that's written with the keyword post-digital. So this is the major outlet for that. And when I receive a paper, which is not post-digital, but which makes a good contribution to things like critical ed tech, then I will email Felicitas and say, look, I've got the paper submitted to PDSC, which is a good paper, but it's not a good fit for me. Maybe it would be a good fit for you. If Felicitas receives something post-digital and she thinks it's kind of out of scope for her paper, for her journal, but it's good, she will email me and she will say, look, Peter, there's something that could be good for you. It's a small community. All together in educational technology, critical ed tech, post-digital, and so on, there's maybe 5 or 6, maybe up to 10 journals that are actually worth publishing in. We all know each other. All the editors know each other. And half of us are in various types of relationships in terms of, I go to Germany at least once per year, give a talk at Felicitas University. By the way, Felicitas is co-editor of LMT. It's 3 of them. It's John Potter from UCL. It's Ben Williamson from Edinburgh. It's Felicitas McGilchrist from Germany. I was in Germany in May. I was in Edinburgh in June. Okay, I was not visiting UCL. But 2 out of 3 co-editors of LMT, I saw them in the last 5 months, in person. Came to their universities, gave lecture to their students, to their audiences. And they come to my university and they give lectures to my audiences. We know each other well. So a good paper will kind of find its way. But it's always better if, as the author, if you carefully choose, decide, okay, so this is my contribution, this is what I'm doing. And because this is what I'm doing, I'm going to publish there. So if you do post-digital stuff, please come over. If you do something that's more appropriate for teaching in higher education, for LMT, for this, for that, then go to them. It's not just about the journal. It's not just about the fact that I want my journal or somebody else wants their journal to be coherent. It's also about the fact that when you do something, whatever you do, you are not alone. It may feel alone to work in Korea. It often feels alone to work in Croatia because in many topics you will be the only person in Croatia working on something. But the journal is a global community. So if you are doing post-digital stuff, we have almost 2,000 published post-digital authors. When you publish with Post-Digital Science and Education, you are joining the community. Your professor, who's published with us, automatically ends up on the list, and she receives a newsletter 4 times per year. Within this newsletter, there are all the new calls for papers, for all books, for all special issues, for everything. So by publishing in the right place, you will not just, you will get a few things. First, your paper will reach intended readership. It will reach people who are interested in what you want to say. It's hugely important. Because you don't just want to publish. You also want somebody to read you. You want somebody maybe to cite you. In order to achieve this, you need to find a place where there are people with similar interests. But then, it's not only about being read by those people, it's also about connecting to those people. Because you will understand that in time, when you focus your work somewhere, that actually names are repeating. For instance, I need to find a reviewer. So you submit a paper, and I need to find the reviewer and I think that your paper is okay, and I would not like to desk reject it. I would like to have it reviewed. And in the end, what I will normally do, I will take a look at your list of references, okay, like here. And then I will take a look. This is now just some paper, it doesn't really matter. And then I will look and I will say, so you got Laura Chernovitz. You are citing Laura Chernovitz, and Laura is a good friend, excellent critical scholar from South Africa, and one of the biggest ed tech critics from the global South. So, you are writing about global South, you are citing Laura, click, I will assign Laura as your reviewer. Because she will be the best person to say whether you interpreted her work correctly or not. So you are entering a community. And it's about the choice of reviewers. It's not just about the readers, it's about the choice of reviewers. It's about the idea that basically when you are in the right place, then you will get the best possible reviewers. You will get people who really know what they are talking about. So you are citing Professor Lee, click. Professor Lee will review a paper. Because many people, especially at master's and early PhD levels, will okay, I have to cite something. So just go to Google and quickly put a reference to something. I've got some thoughts, I'll just put a reference. But if you cite Professor Lee, she will know whether you use her work correctly or not. It's the deepest possible review that you can get. So, since it's a community, about 2,000 people who published in Post-Digital Science and Education in the past 10 years, and I know pretty much all of them, I will have the best possible reviewer for you. Because you are in my field, and I know who is the best for post-digital ethnography, post-digital linguistics, post-digital this, post-digital that, you name it, I'll have the best name for you. You will get the best possible review, you will get the best possible chance to improve your paper. Your paper will become the best it can be. It will be published, and you are joining the community. Meaning that the next time, now she published the paper, and 6 months later I receive your paper, and you're citing her. Oh, okay. Now she's your reviewer. I'm not bothering Professor Lee anymore because I need to spare her. I cannot give her so many papers to review. And in this way, I'm multiplying, spreading the community. The idea is that once you published with us, 1, 2, 3 papers, you're already experienced, and I can actually use you for developing other people's work. Now that's the thing, and this is how communities of knowledge develop. And this is why it's hugely important to find the right place for your paper. It's not just about picking the right journal in a sense that the journal is the most cited, the most this, the most that. I mean, we'll talk about citation as well. But this is the question of simply, and this is where the majority of desk rejects come from. Papers that are not directly written for the journal. The easiest way to see this is house style. How you cite it? Did you put a comma or not? So I can see from something trivial, I can immediately see a much deeper implication. But basically, the idea is here that you need, nobody is alone. I mean, we talked about it yesterday. I gave you a lot of theory yesterday. Nobody is alone. Everybody works, everybody builds their scholarships on the back, on the shoulders of somebody else. Yesterday was theory, today was practice. Today I'm explaining how. Pick the right place for your work. It's never going to be just one journal. Whatever you do, it will usually be 2, 3, 4, 5 journals. It will usually be some number of editors, some number of reviewers. You will see that many people will actually have a situation where they will publish in 4 or 5 different journals, and those will usually overlap. Pretty much everybody who publishes in LMT will sooner or later publish in PDSE or the other way around. For instance, we are also very close to BJET, to teaching in higher education, to a few other journals. And then you basically have this. Then you basically have this situation in which you joined some sort of community. Now, once you join some sort of community, of course, at the beginning you are junior, you are little, you are low. But very soon, actually, when you publish 1 or 2 things, you actually grow. And you end up in the position, somebody help you through their reviews, and you get in the position to review somebody else's work. I would normally expect that if you published a paper with me, I would normally expect you to review 3 to 5 papers in return. And it's, of course, you can reject review offers, but actually it's not a good idea. Editors don't like it. We have a problem with editing. We have a problem with reviewers because people are too busy. And we hate free riders. I gave you 2 hours of my time. Your reviewer, who is Professor Lee, for instance, gave you 2 hours of her time. She gave you a few hours of her time. Then if there is a second round of reviewer, 2 other people gave you a few hours of their time. And now you will say no to help somebody else? I don't like it. Think about it like this. You have parents, and those people gave you a lot. Those people, when you were little, they were bathing you, they gave you some food, they gave you clothes. They sent you to school, you ended up at an elite university. Some of you did it on your own, but most of you had family help, family support. How do you return this to your mom and dad? You don't. What your parents gave you, you are returning to whom? You are returning to your kids. Okay? It's a gift that you don't give back. It's a gift that you pass on. So professor gave you the gift, but you're not giving the gift to professor back. You are giving the gift to the new author who comes into the system. Okay? Think about it as kind of gift economy, because nobody gets paid for it. And think about it in the same way like you have, if you have, exactly parent-child relationships. You don't return favors to your mom and dad. What you do, you give the same favor to your kids. And your kids will not give you, and then of course you will complain that they're not grateful, but actually they will give what you gave to them, they will give to their kids. They will move on the discourse. So, when we speak about reviewing, it's not about returning the favor directly, it's about helping somebody else, it's about helping to grow the community. If you are not doing this, some editors have quite strict policies. I, for instance, have a strict policy. I usually don't touch people when people say I don't have the time. I usually take a look. I try to understand. I try to spare people like postdocs. I try to spare people like young mothers. I try to spare people like who are kind of in vulnerable positions and who may really not have the time. But generally, I don't like the idea of people not giving back. People who don't give back, in my journal, will get sanctioned. They will publish more difficulty, with more difficulty. Keep that in mind. It's not just about the scholarship. A lot of stuff is also about collegiality. It's about somebody gave something to you for free, anonymously. They don't know whom they gave. You owe them, but not them. You owe somebody else. You need to pay this debt. Not to me, because as the editor, I get another types of compensation, but to your own reviewers. And so now we are in the situation in which you are doing your own thing. You are doing ethnography of Korean schools, and then you are in the situation where you find the journal where people are doing ethnography of all sorts of schools, from China, Africa, Europe, whatever. You get your nice reviewers, you get your reviews, you publish your papers, and so on. This is where you start belonging to a certain community. This is where you start belonging to a certain wider discourse. And this is the place where you actually start contributing to scholarly discussions. Now, contribution to scholarly discussions is one of the biggest reasons why Professor Lee is a professor, why I'm a professor, and why somebody else is not a professor. Because in order to get the position, to get the status, you actually need to show that you are able to participate in international scholarly discussions. You don't have to be the biggest guy in the room. You don't have to be the best one, but you need to actively participate. Somebody needs to say, okay, so we are talking about post-digital stuff. We are talking about this. There is an article by Lee and Lee discussing this and this. That means contributing to discussions. But in order to contribute to discussions, you need to be in the right place. Okay? This is why it's hugely important, and I cannot overestimate and overly stress this. 90% of papers get rejected. Some of them are crap, some of them are written by ChatGPT, whatever. We'll talk about it later as well. Okay. But most papers get rejected, not because they're good or bad, but because they're out of scope, because they're not in the right place. It's hugely important to pick the right place for your work. Now, if your place is post-digital, if yesterday's talk convinced you to work in the post-digital perspective, fine. If it's not post-digital, fine again. But don't pretend that you are something that you are not. If you work in the post-digital perspective, then use the post-digital perspective. Go up to the bottom, down to the bottom. If you're using some other perspective, use that perspective. Go down to the bottom. Nobody will say your professor can support you in many different research approaches and ways of working. And as we discussed yesterday, they are all of similar or equal value. I will not say that quantitative work is more valuable than qualitative work, or the other way around. They both have value. But it's simply different places where you will publish those things. It's simply different communities where you will contribute. And you need to be able to identify, who am I? Look at yourself in the mirror. What is it that I'm exactly doing? And when you find what is it that you're exactly doing, then find the right community for what you are doing. Yep. I spent 1 hour on this. But I think it's fair, because it's literally 90%. Okay? Any questions for now? Sure.
I was curious about the challenges that you met as an editor.
What do you mean?
I mean, have you ever experienced some hard times as an editor?
Well, thanks. I mean, being an editor is generally not easy, because you have a big tension between the quality of work and interpersonal relationships. You always need to be aware of the fact that your responsibility goes towards knowledge itself, towards the journal itself, and that's tough. So there is a nice student like you, and she writes something, and she needs the paper in order to graduate, in order to get a job, in order to something. And she's not in a good position. She needs the money. She needs the position. But the paper is not good enough. You need to reject it. You don't feel good about it. But you need to reject it, because if you don't reject it, then you are creating problems for the whole journal. So you try to help this person. You email this person with a big feedback, and the person comes back in 1 week with a new version, and the new version is not better. Maybe you wrote your feedback in a way that she didn't understand. Maybe she was too busy, maybe whatever. You need to reject the paper. And then she writes you back, but professor, I need this I'm not going to get the job. And you need to be a bitch, and you need to say, sorry, reject. For me, that's the hardest part. The hardest part is that actually scholarly publishing today determines human destinies. It determines what kind of job you will have. It determines your income. It determines money. It determines very, very practical things from your daily life. And in order to keep the journal, I need to ignore the human factor. If it's borderline, then I can help. But if it's not borderline, then I just can't help. But there was another question over there. Did I answer your question?
Thank you for your inside view about the publishing system. And I'm wondering the reason, some other reasons for your specific house style. Whenever I write some articles, especially in your book or a journal, I always send some kind of like error line in the Microsoft Word. So like let's say Lee and Lee, and if I put like and in that system in the program, I always see this little red dot or red dotted line, and it kind of makes me very uncomfortable whenever I redo my draft. So would you like consider change the style, or is it very strict rule from the Springer publishing company? Thank you.
Thank you. I think that this question is, it's a very interesting question. I don't think that this question is actually very fundamental to what we are doing, but I will nevertheless explain it. It's about political economy. Springer, Taylor and Francis, all the major journals are basically, and pardon my French, capitalist bastards who use poor people from poor countries to do their dirty work. Literally. So you have a situation where you have all Springer's editorial support is in Malaysia, and all Springer's production, literally production, which produces the papers, is in Chennai, India. Now the thing is that those are paper mills. They've got this huge company there, which doesn't do only Springer. It also does Taylor and Francis. So a few years back, I did a book with Springer and with Taylor and Francis at the same time. And I received production email. It was by the same person, same email, same words, exactly everything. In one email it was Springer, in another email it was Routledge. It's like those factories in China which produce Nike and Adidas and whatever in the same company. They just put different stamps. And then they sell you these things in the shop for $200 because it's like Adidas. It's just stamps, literally. So what do? Those companies basically pay those people few dollars per day in order to do all those things related to production. When you get in touch as editor with those people, you will see that many of those people don't really speak English very well. You will see that those people have a huge workload, that they are overly burdened, and they are getting paid almost nothing. So in almost any journal, unfortunately these days, you cannot count on the journal, on journal production, to actually take care about those things. Theoretically, production should care about those things. In my contract, it says Springer is responsible for this. In practice, I will send 5 papers, and they will publish 5 papers in 5 different formats. And it's not those people's fault. I was trying to, when I just started, I was really angry. I would email them, bugger off, you did a bad job, come again, I filed complaints and everything. But then I figured out that I was barking at the wrong tree, or more precisely, somebody who works in Chennai, India for $2 per day it's really not, and produces 20 papers per day, one for Taylor and Francis, one for Routledge, one for Brill, one for Springer, one for this, one for that. It's really not their problem. I mean, they cannot do it. Meaning that this work of formatting is unfortunately today with the editors. Now I'm speaking not just about Springer, because I've edited the Routledge journals, Taylor and Francis journals, Brill journals. If we are talking about top 5 publishers, Elsevier, Springer, and so on, you will actually see that all of them work with the same company in China, India. They all work exactly in the same way. There's no way out. We are talking about global capitalism. Now, the thing is that in this kind of situation, most of us journal editors are simply forced to do this. Now, if I go to, I'll show you an example. Just a sec. So, this is the proofing system, Springer's proofing system. So every time this paper was already proofed. So every time you submit a paper, I accept the paper comes to you for proofing, and then it comes to me for proofing, for final approval. So I need to approve the paper. Now this is, I cannot edit because it's already submitted. So in this system, it's very hard to actually edit the paper. You can edit it here, but it's hard. It simply takes a lot of time. And if you format your paper wrongly, your paper will pass through China, India. It will come to me. And I will have between 2 and 5 hours of work on one paper to make it well. Okay? A lot of work, many, many hours of work. Now I publish about 200 papers per year myself. There's about 250 working days in a year, meaning that it will practically mean 4 to 5 hours every day for me. I cannot do it. So what do? I transfer this job to authors. I'm simply returning, I have a template email, click, copy, paste, 5 seconds. I send it back to you. And until you do format your paper properly, I will not publish it. Bye-bye. Maybe, if I get a paper by Chomsky or Zizek or somebody who is really high up, then I will spend a few hours and then I will do the job for them because they are, because I really want their paper and they are very But for all other regular people, I will just return it and say, bye-bye. I'm not publishing it. It doesn't really matter how good your paper is. I cannot give you 2, 3, 4, 5 hours of my time to format your crap. Okay? So this is for instance, like this. So this is pretty good. But there are papers that are like, let's try to check this one. Is it the same paper or a different one? Yeah, so this one is a bit more, like here I had to do, so I had to edit some references and so on. Okay, so there's the point. The point is that you need to understand that journal editors are not people who, I am getting paid for this job, but very little, almost nothing. I do it because of certain career goals, because of certain ideas, and so on. But in practice, I handle so many papers that I showed you that I cannot do it all. Many decisions, a lot of feedback that you will receive from me will not be because I don't want to help you. It will not be because I don't want to format your paper. It will not be because I don't want to do this or that. It will simply be because I cannot. with 200 published papers per year, I simply cannot afford hours for formatting your paper. I cannot. I don't have them. Nobody is paying it for me, to me. My publisher is not giving me support for this. I'm on my own. I need to transfer this to you. It's not a question me being a bastard and saying, come on, authors, you need to do this, but it's a fact. I cannot do otherwise.
All right. I think probably there are a couple of things that I have to kind of add, if that's okay. And
Sure.
we may want to kind of move on to second section after break. So probably I think the students may wonder how they can find the right place to go, because there are tons of journals. And the only thing probably that you do is to search SSCI and their list of journals, so it's no idea where to go. I think the best way to handle this is to see where your supervisor has published the paper into. So yeah, often my PhD students are not citing myself too. I could only understand why then don't do that. So you don't have to find your community fall off, because your community should be actually starting with your supervisor or advisors that you are having advised on your dissertation. So I think the easiest way is to check with your supervisor and see where his publications are, and then building onto those publications your supervisor has done. And then that's the place you have to go. And why we had to spend entire hour to talk about finding right space for your journal is that actually this will save your ears. Once you submit your paper, you will take 3 months for you to get the desk rejection. That's stupid to spend that much hours. It's not only about writing a paper, it's all entire process. So it's really important for you to find right place, and then you can save the 3 months for just being rejected without being reviewed. So that's why we are putting a lot of writing workshop you go to, they will say you have to format your sentences and everything, but it doesn't really matter. If you have few grammatical errors, it's not going to be the reason for your paper to be desk rejected. It's more like the fit. That's why we are spending entire hour to talk about it. And second, what you can do is that finding the authors that you really like. If you can't find any author you like, that's the problem of yours. But I'm pretty sure that you have to, it doesn't have to be a big names or anything, but find good authors and see where that author, because the researcher have published different papers here and there, and have a look. I don't have to, you shouldn't read only a single paper of the author inside. I think if you really like the idea of the author, you have to see what are the journals that she has or he has published for the past 2 years. And then that will give you a good sense the community where she belongs to. And that's the community you want to belong to with her or with him as well. So again, if I kind of sum that up, start with your supervisor, that's the best way. And then if your supervisor is not publishing actively recently, we have different supervisors. So some of the supervisors don't have to publish anymore in international venue. And then find the author or researcher you want to really talk, you want to wish to invite if we're a professor, and then that's the journals that you can target. And then spending my students will know how I kind of prepare the manuscript. I always have the journal in my mind, even when we kind of do the research. And then I'm saying that, this is data, these data are good. Probably these are a couple of journals that we can think and when we analyze the data. So I always do that, and then that will save a lot of, our time in the end. So don't just rush to write something, sentences that there are you have to compete with 1,000 of other authors. So it's just meaningless to just write a paper without thinking. So spend at least 2 or 3 good weeks before starting the writing project, and have the journal target journal in your mind. And then try to have the conversation with the people who have published there already. So that's the reasons why we have to say entire hour. And I think probably it's a good time for us to have a little break, if that's okay with Petar. So we will have a 10-minute break, and then we'll go on talking about the other.
Yes, well, after the break, I would just like to, because, I mean, thank you so much for this, for summarizing this. I think it's really important. I just forgot to do it. But I think it's really important for you to actually realize the background to some of these decisions and actually practical ways in which you can frame your work towards a certain journal, towards a certain place, towards a certain community. In the next part, I would like to address two things which are really important. One thing will be indexing of the journals, and I'll show you some examples to say what you mean when you choose your journal and so on. And the other thing that I would like to address is the use of Gen AI in your writing, because I think it's hugely important, and these days it's one of the biggest practical challenges that I'm facing. But yeah, enjoy your break and see you at 11:30. Thank you.